Good morning, everyone. Thank you for watching yet another conversation with. Today we're going to talk with another franchisor and franchisee, this time with Two Men in a Truck, which that's a brand that everybody knows. So we're very much looking forward to this conversation. I would say happy Monday, but it seems like all the days are the same. I will not tell some dad joke about the days being called something other than Monday. But you know, we're still navigating this thing and playing it day by day. There are some good indicators out there that we are starting to see what we've been hoping for, which is the curving of new cases and hopefully some changing in deaths thanks to social distancing. But we're in the business community, and as entrepreneurs, we're looking for that next stage in the curve for our businesses. Some businesses are finding ways to pivot. Some are struggling to figure it out. We're bringing you the best conversations that we can so that we can figure out what is the best pathway forward. Randy and Curtis, thank you for joining us this morning. So Randy, I want to kick it over to you first. Just general thoughts on business, franchise, and personal. What's going on in your world right now?
Well, probably like everyone, there's a lot happening, and every day sounds, something different from the previous day as far as more information we're learning and what we're understanding. But, at Two Men in a Truck, we've been, around for over 30 years and, started with two brothers in a beat up pickup truck, moving things around a neighborhood, and has fast forwarded now to the nation's first and largest moving franchise system. So, for us right now, we're continuing to really just to stay connected with our system. We've got close to 400 locations throughout North America and the UK and Ireland. And really it's about communication right now, truly understanding what we're hearing, from each state, because each state is a little bit different from as far as impact goes, but also really just trying to paint a picture of clarity, what's coming from Washington, what's happening with, each of the different acts that are coming out, but more importantly, just listening to what's happening locally and in our communities while we continue to operate.
Curtis, I want to jump over to you. Tell our audience just so we can put it into perspective. What does your business look like? A little bit of background on that, and then same question: what's going on in your business, personal and franchise lives?
I guess what our business looks like, from being a moving company. For the most part, we've got I currently live in Kansas City, Missouri. It's one of our offices that we own around the country. So we're a 25,000 square foot building and normally have, about 15 office staff that show up on a daily basis and about 40 to 50 movers that'll show up in the morning and then take their trucks and head out for the day. That's our normal operating setup. Right now it's all of the office staff at home, which has been a unique challenge. And then it's having our movers and drivers show up and then dispatch themselves with their trucks, and having one person at a 25,000 square foot facility has been kind of interesting the past 3 weeks. But right now we're just continuing to do our best to move people forward and take care of customers. So that's what it's currently looking like at our offices.
Curtis, we had an opportunity to speak, before this started, which was really interesting. And one of the things that we found very compelling is having a franchisor and franchisee together. And at this point in time, I think you're in the system for 5 years,
Yep.
Being able to reflect backwards, right? Why you went with Two Men in a Truck, what was the intangible or tangible elements, why you went with the brand, and how that validates now, not only 5 years later, and you guys have expanded tremendously, but also as you come into a crisis and you have a whole new perspective on why you went into the relationship, why it was the right one. Could you share some thoughts on that? And even way back, like if you had any doubt when you first bought in or what you were considering when you bought into the franchise.
Yeah. When we first bought in, the biggest thing is I'm in business with two of my brothers and then two other individuals. And when it started with just my two brothers, two of us traveled up there. And we sat in a room and got to meet Randy and the family and go through everything and learn a lot about Two Men in a Truck. And the biggest thing is it's a family. It was so great to just hear Brig, one of the original two men, talk about, how they take care of all of their franchisees and how the family is still involved in running this large business now, and as a franchisor, and I knew I was going into business with my two brothers, so that connection there was just awesome. And it was just truly believing in the leadership and the executive team at home office at Two Men in a Truck to guide us in the right place. I was a 23-year-old kid when we first purchased our franchise in San Antonio, Texas. And having all of their support and guidance is the only way I would have ever bought a business at that time. So that was my mindset going into it. And now that's, more clear than ever. I mean, there's a video message from one of the executive members every night, emailed to all franchisees, helping us, just dissect all the information we're getting on a daily basis. There's webinars every day covering HR, payroll, the PPP acts, how to apply for the loans, all of those things. I'm actually taking all the information that our corporate office spends time to dissect and present to us, and actually been sharing with local businesses that I have, relationships with their owners, because they don't have that kind of support. And that's just been so eye-opening to realize, like, I am so lucky to be part of a franchise system and with such a great franchisor.
Randy, we look at plenty of franchise brands, you and I, and in a time like this, there are going to be brands that unfortunately fail to their franchisees. There was the term support, or here's what we do to provide you support or scaffolding, and some of those will fail. Obviously, with your story, you've grown up literally in the brand, so you've seen multiple moments where things could potentially bend the business, yet the morals and the values continue to help provide the guiding light to manage the business. I would love to hear some insights of what do the conversations look like at the beginning of March when you're going into navigating this, and how do they look from the executive meeting, and what is the behind the curtain view of what's going on from a leadership standpoint at Two Men in a Truck?
Yeah, it's interesting reflecting back, because we had our annual conference right at the end of February in Vegas. And, leading into that point, there was a lot of, just things coming from overseas as to what was happening. And we had a few, fears and some challenges figuring out do we move forward. But at that time, it was like, we're moving forward with the meeting. And then coming out of it, that next week is really when you started hearing cases in the US. So for us, as a leadership team, what it really forced us to do was really become very agile. And, I've been with Two Men in a Truck almost 19 years and started as an intern. So we've been through storms, and I think we use that word a lot because of what we've been through in any business you're going through, whether that's you're dealing with unemployment, you're dealing with the economy, you're dealing with regulations. This is a storm of unprecedented nature, but I believe, what hasn't changed with Two Men in a Truck is who we are and our values and why we exist, from getting up every day to go to work to help people. And so what we really had to do as leaders was come together and say, how do we coordinate the messages moving forward? Because we were different states being different impacted by the virus, some states earlier than others. So A is trying to decipher what the truth was to the extent we could. What are the facts that we know it? But the biggest thing from a leadership perspective we believe in is, you have to define reality. You got to bring clarity. You got to bring the facts. You got to bring the information and the data, but you also have to bring hope. And so I think that's been the underlying message as we move forward with our communications. And as Curtis mentioned, we do videos and webinars, and a lot of times just picking up the phone and saying, hey, how are things going? Trying to answer some questions and bring some clarity. But at the end of it, bringing hope to saying, hey, here's what we're going to continue to do as a brand. We've been through this for 30 years of going these ups and downs, these peaks and valleys in business. This is unprecedented, but we're going to get through it because of the people in the foundation that makes Two Men in a Truck who we are. So it's really been a reaffirmation of why people get into franchising to some extent here. You've got a sustainable business that's been around 30 years. It's been through a lot of storms. You've got a values-based company that believes in people, but you've also got a network of, several hundred other franchisees that have an average tenure in our system of 10 years. There's a lot of wisdom and experience there to rely on. So this is really when it's challenging us to say, yep, this is why we exist. It's not when times are good, it's when we're going through these storms, so to speak, to say, how do we maintain what we're doing? How do we continue to move forward? But how do we become better coming through it? And that's kind of been the tone of our messaging every time we talk, every time we communicate, every time we're working on a an email or a correspondence going out is with that tone to say, yep, clarify the facts, bring hope, but also reaffirm why 2 Men in a Truck exists, and that's our core values and our core purpose.
Randy, your focus on core values, right? Who you are, values, why you exist, right? And getting to Nick's point, post-COVID, there's going to be every franchisor claim that they supported their franchisees, right? They'll make that claim. Just like every franchisor now makes a claim that we train and support you, right? Meaningless. Could we go deeper, right? Because like your core values are leading. We spoke with Don, Curtis, and you see the success, and you've been involved with the brand for so long, right? So there will be brands that out of this will repeat, here's our core values, here's our purpose, but it doesn't live at the core for them. And it's just going to be words, right? And so now we're seeing in motion with all these brands, with the franchisees, how these core values lead, right? And the innovation. How do we go from explaining to someone who just has core values because it looks good on a website to have it live and breathe inside an organization? And I know it's a difficult question, but like, what are some of the things that you guys do to make sure it's at the heart of everything?
Well, I think, you got to lead by example, and part of it is living what you're going to say you do. I'll share a quick story with you. We've got a lady named Cheryl that works in our franchise development team. And, it's been a little bit of a shakeup with fran development during this time where, we've got a strong pipeline, but people are kind of just waiting and seeing. And we had an inquiry come in that had nothing to do with our franchise brand, had more to do with finding an estimate for moving in Philadelphia. And so here's somebody in Fran Dev that's trying to work to talk with their contacts and prospects, just re-engaging and staying strong from the relationship, gets an inquiry from a potential customer. Instead of saying, yeah, I can just email or forward that to the franchise, she actually called the franchise in Philadelphia, talked to the sales representative for the operation, found out, they're kind of battling, like every one of us, a lot of mental stress with what's happening, cheered her up, at the same time, passed along a note to me. We in turn sent a note to that customer sales rep as well, just saying, hey, times are tough, but here's why we're so proud of you and what you're doing. So I think it's hard to like you say, you talk about it a lot, and there's no measurement for your values. Ultimately, it comes down to your actions and what you're doing, and hopefully getting reaffirmations from our franchisees out there that we're doing a good job, but also seeing others that work within the brand take it upon themselves to take one step further. And we've used that term a lot. Just go one step further, one more call, one more email to somebody, one more text than you may have done yesterday, just to let them know, hey, you're okay, or do you need to talk or vent? And it's just part of our core. And I think it's hard to measure, but it's one that we're hearing a lot of stories happening pretty much on a daily basis of just staying connected with our people in the system.
Curtis, one thing that obviously happens in the business community is we search around for people to help make us feel comfortable as we're navigating unknown waters. And so everybody in the business community is looking for folks that are trying to look through this with as much optimism and stability as possible. How are you navigating this mentally, and how are you staying strong and focused on maybe already starting to think about what does business look like on the other side of this, when even though it's going to be a new normal, things pick up and get back to similar to what it was before, because the reality is people are still going to move, leases are still going to run up, and you're in a category that is sound and probably strong even in a recessionary period. How are you holding up, and maybe what advice would you have for other business owners that are trying to navigate these waters unknown?
My biggest advice would be is that, in almost every industry, you're not doing the work yourself. You're having employees that are actually running the company for you. They're out there as our movers and drivers, our sales reps, as our frontline team, actually taking care and being the face of our franchise, taking care of the customers. So what we're really doing is trying to just breed as much positivity and encouragement as we can. between all of us owners, we each recorded a video, and we've been able to text that out to every single mover and driver, sales representative, just a video of encouragement. Here's what's going on. This was about 2 weeks ago, and there was more unknown. We'll be sending out another one this week. Just, they're missing out on more face-to-face time than, we've ever had, the least amount we've ever had with our staff. So trying to build ways of positive encouragement of, hey, we're going to continue to operate. We need to take care of our customers. That's our mindset. And the same thing, even Zoom meetings, trying to make people happy. One of our big things we like to do is we like to close up early and do a happy hour normally once a month and take our staff out. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it at a local bar or restaurant. So we did a virtual happy hour. And one of the coolest things is we did this with just our general managers around the country and our multi-unit support system, and then the ownership group, and had about 14 people on the call. And one of the other owners sent a message to Randy and just said, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's going to be, 5 o'clock Eastern where you are, but it's 4 o'clock for most of us Central Time. And would you mind joining? And Randy took 30 minutes out of his day and hopped on a virtual happy hour with us and had a drink and was able to sit there and talk to all of our general managers and multi-unit staff and really just encourage them of, we're going to come out stronger than this, than all of our competition. When there's adversity, that's just our opportunity to prove, why we are the best. So that's my biggest thing is our job is to try to make everyone as happy as they can, and keep everyone as positive and safe during this time. And then when it comes out to the other end, they're going to appreciate hopefully all of the effort that was put in as an ownership group and as a franchise system to really position ourselves there. But the biggest thing is employees just have to be happy. We're a people business. So it's literally spending every waking day messaging, videos, coffee talks. Now we got that idea from home office to do a once a week coffee talk. So we have another face-to-face interaction, anything to keep people happy, because that's what our business is.
Curtis, you've built up a pretty big organization as a franchisee, multi-unit. Have you reflected on the difference between you and other franchisees that don't scale the same way? I'm not necessarily referring to the system itself, but is there anything you could share on that, insights on how you approach the opportunity, how you scaled it up, and what some of the differences, at least you're observing from others who don't do that?
Yeah. Our mindset from day one has been scale. We're a little different. We are, when I started, I had 2 partners, my 2 brothers. So there's already 3 of us. So, going in there, 1 store wasn't going to be enough for what we wanted for all 3 of us. So it was constantly, what's the next opportunity? And then, there was an opportunity to acquire another franchise, and we were able to take that step. And then it was, able to partner with 2 other individuals on another location. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. But the biggest thing was, going in with the mindset of having the opportunity and making that clear to our corporate office that we wanted to grow. We've had multiple conversations with their franchise development team, constantly saying, hey, we want to continue to acquire locations. If there's a franchise that's struggling, we're available. We're setting up our staffing so that if you need someone, we're available. The biggest thing for scaling is I think people are always too focused on, maximizing the profit on a 1-store location versus setting your business and your organization up for success where somebody can move on to take that next opportunity. And luckily with 3 people, we were set up that way from day one, and we were able to acquire a couple more, and we made the decision that we will always be structured for growth opportunities. So that's kind of been our mindset. And that's why I think we've scaled where other people, if they're so focused on one, they can't.
Yeah.
For those people that are watching at home, you can go learn more about 2 Minute Truck at 2minutruck.com. You can see the website up there, or you can go to their 1851 franchise page and learn more about what's going on in the brand at 1851franchise.com/2minute-truck. Randy, I want to jump back over to you. People are, we're looking for people to be their best when we're at our worst as a nation. Are you seeing that all over the place? Are you seeing a unified group come forward? And is that partly because you spent so much effort as a brand to build culture beforehand? Did that prepare you for a moment like this when a unified force. The sum of many is much better than the sum of one.
Yeah, I think that's the power of franchising too, and it should be a focus for any franchise brand. Is that what you just said? Is we've got this together, and it's a big change when you're going through what we're going through now, but a big difference when somebody's going at it alone versus I've got a team behind me that's going to be there no matter what happens. And so, for one, I think the power of franchising itself lends us to try and create that mindset. And we talk a lot about mindset. I'm sure Curtis will mention. I use that word a lot, but Brig, one of our original two men, always talks about that adventure of business that we're in. And business is not meant to be all perfect and easy every day. It's that adventure people get into to help build something, to overcome a challenge, to grow through the struggles. And we've been talking about that even, pre-recession time as to how we're going to get through these challenging times as a brand. And we even have a quote walking into our corporate office that says, "Welcome to Two Men in a Truck, the moving company that never made it." And people always walk in and say, "What the heck are you thinking putting a quote like that at the corporate office?" But it's really a reminder every day we walk in that there's never a moment we feel we've achieved success. There's never a moment we feel like we've made it as a brand, because something else is going to hit tomorrow. And I think the biggest thing that we're going through right now is things can change on a dime. And you have to be willing to accept that when things are going great, that things can change on a dime. But you also have that mentality when they do change and hit you hard, you got to hit back harder. And I think that's been part of the core fabric of Two Men in a Truck. Yeah, we're in the moving industry, but it's a people business. And our job and really role at the corporate office is really to maintain that brand mindset of man, no matter what challenge hits us, we're going to grow, we're going to fight it, we're going to get up, and we're going to continue to do it, but we're going to do it together. And I think a lot of things we've been putting in place the last couple of years, intuitively maybe, or out of sheer luck, or by the grace of God, have been saying, hey, you're preparing yourself for that next big thing that's going to hit you. Hopefully you're ready for it, but if you're not, get up, fight it, and keep moving forward. And like people like Curtis every day, I mean, I can't say so many good things about these guys, but it hasn't changed with this situation we're going through. They've been like this since day one of coaching their people, developing them, having fun, figuring out ways to develop them. They put people through our scholarship program that goes from a manager, potential franchisees. So when this situation hit, their foundation was strong. And I think that's the message, is the things you're doing every day during the good times are really going to help set you up for when that next thing hits you, to be ready to attack it and overcome it. And Curtis and that team is a prime example of them doing that today.
Randy, I mean, you've touched on so many things there in that, I'm still, right, Curtis's statement, by the way, which is not something I want to discuss now, but one that I think is profound, was about that franchisees are too focused on maximizing profit from one location, which I think is a mind-blowing concept if you really break that down. Like any franchisee that listens, any franchisor, think about that statement and the impact it has on franchise sales and expectations and franchisee recruitment. I mean, that's a game changer in my mind, and a statement I'll never forget. I don't know, if you want to reflect on that, but also, Randy, again, you're coming back to mindset. I love the concept of one step further, right? Because the exponential amplifier effect of that on a daily basis with X number of employees who take that one extra step, that's the game changer, right? So it's not, what can I change now as an organization today? You probably can't. I mean, you could modify things, but it's that culture that builds that in every day, embeds it, continuous improvement. And I know I'm just talking because you also talked about the adventure, the story behind it. Could you share more? You'd mentioned the adventure a bit, how does that story come into play? Is it with recruitment? Is it every day with franchisees? How does that affect the culture?
Yeah, I think it starts with just who we are. Like I shared, we often laugh a little bit about the moving industry, is that not often we always, wake up wanting to become a professional mover as part of our career, but there's no greater feeling than working in a people business and taking care of customers and getting them in from a stressful situation to their new place of residence, especially during a time like this where people, are screaming to get out of their location to get into a new one as quickly as they can because of contracts and whatever it may be. But that's really, from our fabric. I mentioned Brig, one of our original 2 men. The whole family from a beginning was all about, no matter what happens to us, it's going to make us better. And you can't come into business every day thinking, all we do is move boxes. All we do is move armoires up flights of stairs, or, put boxes on a truck. No, we're helping move people get into a better place in life. And that's a different mindset walking in from that adventure of where we could go when we've had, 11, 12 years of record growth, and we don't see it stopping as we move 10 years past this situation we're in today. But it's really a mindset. And I think, what Curtis and his team, when he mentioned that profit and really starting with why, and that's something that as a brand, we've really focused on for many years now, but it starts with our purpose. The profits and the results are going to be there, but if we're not waking up trying to move people forward, and it's not just our customers, it's our communities, but it's also our employees. If we're not waking up, moving them forward every day, profits are worthless. It's not going to even be there. But if we do that, the results will be there. We'll be able to reinvest, provide more opportunities, and that cycle continues to grow the brand of 2 Men in a Truck. So yeah, it's an event. I mean, that's what I love about this company and what we do every day is we're building. And to your earlier question about seeing people kind of take on the culture and step up, we have a national accounts teams that focus on, commercial accounts, but we also have a sales support team that helps franchisees coaching and selling and helping book customers. They came together on their own and are now cold calling every school district in America, trying to figure out, hey, how can we help you, whether that's delivering notebooks or Chromebooks or whatever it may be to students in need, or do you need to rearrange any of your schools now that you're closed for the year? Nobody said, hey, we need to go do this. They brought it to us. We're going to do it together. And so those examples, I think, they're in that adventure with us right now in this storm as well, and they're taking it upon themselves to try and figure it out. And that's why I love being part of the brand.
Curtis, when you reflect on the adventure for you, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine like there are so many human beings that have something happen in life and it creates regret. And that includes folks that have bought a franchise and it just didn't work out, and they reflect back and say, maybe I should have looked at things differently. But I would imagine, like in a time like this, you're talking about the president of an organization joining your Zoom happy hour. You're talking about executives giving you words of comfort as you go through this to let you know that they have your back. You're applying those same tactics to your staff. Like, does this validate your decision even more? And does even though we have chaos in our lives right now, does it motivate you even more to accomplish greatness as we figure out what the world looks like on the other side of this?
Absolutely, it does. I mean, this is just incredible of everything we're doing right now and what we're going through, and just taking a step back and trying to realize, 10 years from now, what are we going to be saying about this? And this is one of the things that Randy talked about on our happy hour, actually, and said, when you're looking back on this, how are you going to feel about this? Did you just find a way to survive, or did you find a way to thrive? Did you find a way to continue to follow the core value of moving people forward? I was lucky enough to have a conversation with our general manager in Kansas City, who's 7 months into his position here when all of this happens. And it's his first time really should have been going into our busy season, and trying to get amped up for everything with lofty goals, and all this is happening. And we sat down and had a conversation and said, can you imagine how you're going to feel when you describe how you led our organization through all of this, and you're looking back and telling your kids about it, and you're telling all of your staff, all the things that we went through. And it's awesome. It's awesome to take people who, he started as a mover, and then he was a driver, and then he worked in sales, and then he was our sales manager, and now he's our general manager. And, to take someone that literally went in and found a job, 5 years ago with 2 Men in a Truck, and now he's leading, a 60 to 70 person organization in Kansas City through a pandemic. It's just great to watch people grow. And that's what validates all of this, the ability that, we've helped someone get into business ownership. We plan to continue to do that for a lot more people. And 2 Men in a Truck supporting us and providing things like the scholarship program, letting managers go through, the new franchise training to help them grow so we can, they can be successful when they become franchisees. It's validated everything I've wanted. And it's honestly feel super lucky that, having this conversation with you guys in my basement right now, having the luxury to be safe and take care of employees during this time that I personally know that I can do everything in my power to take care of them. Whereas, you would think that everyone and every business owner is doing their best right now and putting their employees first, but unfortunately, that's just not the reality. So I just feel very lucky knowing that those 300 people that are in our organization that we are actively doing our best to provide every resource for them right now.
Hey, Nick, do you have the, again, I know I'm obsessed with these issues, the website for 2 Men in a Truck, right? I think the words Randy used about moving people forward, right? And so what I find so compelling about brands and internally as our law firm, we've spent, I'd say on our core values, our purpose for our clients, literally years and years focused on them. And initially they start off and feel superficial, but when you live them and track them on a quarterly way, I just find it interesting that would come off as a marketing piece or copy. We move people forward, right? Probably didn't come about from a marketing concept, but just was developed by the culture. And everything that we're discussing during this call, Randy and Curtis, reflects that. And it's not an accident. And I just find that compelling because everyone looks for what's the secret to success. And you guys have described it, and it's that intangible every day. And, it's interesting because at a certain point for a business, whether it's franchise sales or selling to customers, you guys are talking about the transformation you provide, right? Hey, it's moving services for me, it's legal, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're focused on what's the transformation that occurs. And then all of a sudden, nothing's marketing. It's a sincere effort to deliver that value. Mm-hmm. It's just great for me to see it because you can't make this up. I mean, it's very few franchisors will go live unscripted with the franchisee, right, in a live conversation. And what's amazing to me is, Curtis, again, then it gets to the other point of recruiting the right people. Curtis's story just by itself, playing, tennis in college and his story with his brothers. But it's amazing to me to see the values of 2 Men in a Truck reflected in Curtis and how that's now come down to his employees. And so then the whole concept of stakeholders really takes shape, right? We're a franchisor and we have these stakeholders, our customers, our franchisees, even their employees. And it's just nice to see how it comes full circle. And if I just go to the website, moving people forward looks like just a slogan that took someone 4 seconds, and you find out it's embedded in a culture.
Yeah. And that, that's some folks and some businesses may come out of this with a new core purpose, depending on, what happens with their business, or their mindset may shift to a new endeavor walking, through this storm and coming out of it. But, but because 2012-13 is when we really went to work to reaffirm why we existed. And we asked those tough questions of, why is it that we get up every day at 2 Men in a Truck? What would happen if we closed? Would anyone care? Would customers care? Why do we exist? And, it came back to everyone, to Curtis's point, people that I started as an intern at 2 Men in a Truck. So many stories of people that started looking for a job and have turned it into careers. Like, it just came back over and over and over again. So it may, seem like, oh yeah, you move people forward, but it truly came from those existing stories of people that have come here, have taken on more responsibilities, whether that may be jumping from, my son intern to where I'm at, or from a mover taking on more responsibility to become a driver and then manager and then ultimately a franchise owner, or they came to 2 Men in a Truck, built a resume, and now they went to build a career elsewhere that we helped in that stage. That's why we exist. And so, I think the other thing that I give a lot of credit to our CEO, John Nobis, is during this time, we came up with a list of new kind of guiding principles to get us through this. And it included everything from, staying healthy and making sure we protect our people, to a different form of making sure our franchisees are good, to thinking long-term of what does our summer season 2021 look like. So things like that even though we've got our foundation of a purpose and our values, which are who and why we exist, we had some specific principles that aligned us as a leadership team to say, yeah, during this storm, here's what we are going to wake up checking ourselves against every day to make sure every call, every text, every email is going to go back to support those principles, which should obviously support the values and purpose of why we exist. you hear me okay?
Let's see. Is that back?
Yeah, you're good. Can you hear me?
All right. I think. All right. Might have been Charles' side. So I think the message, we move people forward. I mean, it ends up being an anthem for our country too. I mean, like even if you think of the process of a move, like it's taking one item at a time, whether it's a box item or it's a couch or it's a chair, like taking the baby steps that the collective ends up moving a home. As I'm sitting here watching the video just go over and over again, it's like we're all trying to look for one, what's going to make us feel safe and comfortable here. And I think that adds the most complex part to this whole journey is, we got to protect our families, we got to protect our teams, we got to protect ourselves. So we're navigating that. And then we get to navigating our businesses, that we do have to protect cash flow so that we can have a business on the other side of this. For one unit franchisees, forget about with 2 Men and Truck, just general, they're navigating things much differently than having a team around them. So like there's so much complexity to this. You add in the panic that comes from both sides and sleepless nights, and then you add in the fact that we're in a political climate where there's a presidential race happening this year. Like, it is the most messed up, mind-blowing thing ever. But if we're looking for what is a pathway that we can follow, you think of the logistics or operations of a move, of taking one step at a time, and then the bigger statement of moving people forward. Like, ultimately, we're going to get to a place, whether that means business is open in America gradually, or we find a cure for the disease, and that helps build that comfort a lot faster. Like, it's going to happen, and I think it's such a powerful message. And Randy, and there's not really a question. Any points or feedback would be great from either of you on this. But it's like you tell the stories about the pivoting, about moving, going and getting computers to get it to families, or pivoting that's happening with franchisees that say, hey, I have this device, which is a truck. In some cases, I have a team that may be able to help. Like, there's so much good that's happening here, and that I mean, me personally, I don't think we're far off from it, but I'm looking forward to more of those positive stories coming out from a media standpoint, because I think that gets us to the starting line of moving people forward. But any feedback would be awesome.
Yeah, and I think as a brand, that's something that, we've got trucks and we've got great people, and those are two amazing assets. Our people being number one, is where can we help in our communities during a time of need? And to your point about that rallying cry, that we move people forward, it's not just the move side. It's like whenever there is a need, we exist to help. And I think that's that rallying cry right now. Like, we're delivering close to 30,000 face shields to the Beaumont Health System in Detroit. Your Phoenix operation was delivering almost like kegs of sanitizer that was being created by a distiller and to be delivered to a Phoenix homeless shelter. You're not hearing those stories out in the media, but those things are, we've got trucks and we've got people. How can we help? And that's the thing I love most about what we're doing is, you're not hearing it, but we're doing it. And we're going to continue to do it tomorrow and 2 weeks and 3 years from now, because that's what's made 2 Men in a Truck really who we are and what we've been part of the last 30 years. Is it started from just being a pillar in our community to help people in a time of need. And so, I think there's so much meaning behind those words that we move people forward, where for us, it's really, when we're talking with people in our communities or we're interviewing people for a position, we're talking about that first, because that's where it all starts, is that why we exist. And then everything else comes behind that. So I know Curtis and the team have been doing that for years too. So if an opportunity calls and they're there, they're going to go do it.
So one thing I'd like to add is just that, as you mentioned, moving people forward is formed into, a rallying cry and an anthem. It's literally inbred in every one of us. I mean, we learned about an opportunity where another storage place was offering storage to college students when they were being asked to leave campuses. And it wasn't really clear if they were coming back to school or what was happening. We saw an opportunity, and most of our locations, like we do here in Kansas City, offer storage. So we immediately, reached out with no limit and had some press releases and wanted to get the word out there as best as possible. We're not an ad agency or a marketing agency, so we're not very good at that. We're good at moving people. But we want to get the word out there that we're offering free storage to college students. And that actually transitioned to anyone affected by the coronavirus. And those things, it's kind of what Randy and the executive team and home office has built in every franchisee. We have our own private Facebook group of just 2 Men and a Truck employees, anyone from movers and drivers to home office employees, franchisees. And every day it's just flooded with positive messages. And you see that there's a location that delivered face shields, and our immediate response is, taking it one step forward. How can we do even more? How can we find something even better in our community to take it a step further? And then someone else around the country in 2 Men and a Truck will see that, and they want to go a step forward there, and offer that. So giving back to the community is one of our core values, and it's literally been instilled in every one of us. And it's really cool just to see during all of this, just the positive messages. Not everyone gets to see that, but inside of 2 Men and a Truck, our private group is flooded every day with positive messages.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to me because I think sometimes I get, when we're on these conversations, I'm like super positive. Then when they end, I'm in the conference room by myself and I'm like, why are you so super positive? And then if I watch the news, I'm like, oh no, right? But this does, I from my end, as we're trying to close on this, a couple of things stick out to me. One is, in the franchise world, we've used the word brand so freely, right? And I think most people, they'll refer to their franchise brand or their brand, and even, vendors, PR, marketing, everyone has, talks about brands, but they never look beyond the superficial of really what's behind it. And a conversation like this really gets to the point. If I had to define what a brand is, it's 1% what your logo is, and it's 99% what's the core values, mindset, and transformation that sits underneath it. Customer transformation, franchisee transformation, and very few people look at that. And then something else, though, that you'd mentioned, Randy, I guess we're all learning right now, humility, right? And I'm taking that to heart. But you'd mentioned, I think in 2013, you guys really did your deep dive. And while I'm saying there's brands that aren't going to survive at the turn, who may not have their brand down and their value, you brought up a good point that now's maybe the time to reflect on that. Yeah. So rather than just blindly saying, oh, everything is great and we're going to push franchise sales, sell, and, maybe now's the time to really take that pause, have that humility, which even for our firm, I'm approaching every day, at least trying with that humility and examine what we do. And so maybe the next turn, 5 years from now, the next conversation is someone who said, hey, during this crisis, it was a gut check and it made me humble, like all of us should be. And I realized I really needed to get our brand right. And so that's what I'm taking out of this, because it's no accident to see this relationship and the growth. And so that feels good for me. How I feel 2 minutes after this conversation, I have no idea. But right now, I know for sure I feel great about it.
Yeah, and that's something we've reinforced too, because Curtis mentioned the daily videos we do at the end of each day. It really gives us a chance to update anything that's hit, 'cause there has been so much information changing every day, every hour, it seems like. But to reaffirm what's changed, but also to realign our mindset and remember, man, we're putting things into our mind every day, just like we put into our trucks for diesel fuel every day to get it going, is to reaffirm some positive. To Curtis' point, every day there's a reaffirmation of positive and a sense of hope, because ultimately we will get through this, we'll be stronger. But ultimately, from a branding perspective, when people see our trucks or our people in uniform, we want that emotion to be happy, to smile, and to realize, man, this brand has our back, just like we do for our franchisees and our teammates, and we have it for our communities too. And so everything we do here really exists for that whole purpose. And it's a fulfilling feeling too, when you wake up thinking about that versus trying to sell or from a profitability first. Those are important attributes of a business, but it should not be the fulfilling feeling you get of why you do what you do every day.
As we make this final turn, I would love to get just final thoughts. Curtis, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts that you want to share with people watching?
My final thoughts would just be is to continue to take care of all of your employees through all of this. That's just the biggest mindset. Everyone's scared. It's easy to sometimes think about, how is this impacting, us as franchisees or as business owners, but it's not always putting, your mind at the same level of some of your employees, and what are they worried about that, you have zero desire to lay off anyone, and it's not even crossing your mind, but they don't know that, so what are conversations that you're having every day to put your employees at ease, to continue to motivate them through this time, because that's our job as leaders. So that's my biggest mindset, and my focus right now is every day is thinking, what are some of their fears, and how can we help spread some positivity and motivate them just in personal and in business to get through this really difficult time.
Yeah.
Okay. Randy, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think Curtis nailed it as always about, it's waking up. We're people oriented, and we got to make sure we're taking care of our people. But I think as leaders out there, whether you're in the franchisor or franchisee space, don't ever forget why you're in this position to begin with, is to lead. And, they're going to be forced to make tough decisions when they don't have all the information, but you got to make a decision quickly while trying to balance the long-term thinking, when short-term you might not have all the data, but you got to make quick decisions for your people. And, ultimately, I think it just comes back to just reaffirming why you exist. And I think a lot of people they're tired. They're kind of getting monotonous of having to do the same thing over and over again. But you have to wake up every day reaffirming why you got into business for the reason in the first place, reaffirm what you're going to go do to support that, and then go work on it. And I think the worst thing you do is you wake up without a plan every day, especially during a period like this, because then you start getting on to the news, or then you start getting on social media, and then you start putting that negativity back into your mind of what's happening. So you have to balance that reality, but you also have to bring hope. And so every day, hopefully you're bringing a sense of hope for people. And secondly, I would say, as you're talking to people, and you always want to say, hey, how can I help you? Or what can I do to help? And we've learned, really to try and get more specific. So we'll try and offer 2 or 3 solutions that you might not realize are the right solutions yet for somebody. But a lot of times when you're asking if they need help, they say, no, I got it, when they truly do need help. So we've really learned as leaders to try and get specific when we're trying to support people and ask how we can help them.
And Charles, final thoughts?
Yeah, just drawing on Randy's point, this is a once-in-a-lifetime crisis, and everything about it is horrible, right? And so once we get past the health and safety of family and friends, the silver lining in this is not only are we evaluating why we exist in business, but also in our lives. And so this is a big pivot point in our society, as we each recognize like our own mortality, and life just isn't one big, positive event. There's challenges. So I think from a business perspective, I think now's the time for every brand to really evaluate why they exist and what their purpose and transformation is going to be post-COVID.
Yeah, and my final thoughts are, I feel there's going to be a few things that come out of this. If I can change Charles away from full screen. There you go. A few things are going to come out of this. One is human beings are, in my opinion, are not going to necessarily look at brands for what they do. They're going to look at brands for who you're in moving. It is going to be that you have purpose, and you can prove that you have values, and you have that you're moral. That I think there's going to be a shift in the labor force on the other side of this. That people are going to evaluate their careers slightly different. Randy has moved all the way up from a much different role in the company as intern to being president over his career. So it doesn't matter where you start, because at the end of the day, he knew that he landed with a brand that aligned with what he was trying to accomplish from an inside standpoint. And I think that's going to be one of the big shifts that happens in this world. As I reflect on our own business, And it's not regret. I've never had regrets in business. It's just things that I could do better. And I think there's a period where, because the labor market got so tight, we may have not been as strict as an organization by recruiting through our core values. Therefore, good enough got some folks in the door. And I'll say that's the most dangerous thing that can happen to an organization. So what Randy said, like, for brands, take a step backwards and really define like what you're looking for so that you can find a Curtis. You get a Curtis into your organization, you don't need 1,000 different Curtises. You need one, and then 5, and then 10, and then they grow and they hold true to that core values, and those values get driven down to the employees. So my point is, I think the labor market's going to shift drastically. I think purpose is going to rise to the top. And that brands that want to really have a different outlook to prepare for the future are going to take a pause, and they're going to say, these are our core values. This is our operating principles. Let's make sure we align in the way that we recruit talent into our organizations. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for yet another wonderful conversation. Like Charles said, I feel like these conversations give us hope. And us as human beings, that's what we look for. We look for hope in these situations, and I greatly appreciate it. For anybody watching at home, be sure to go on to facebook.com and find our private Facebook group. On there, we're building a franchise community of franchisees, franchisors, suppliers who are having great conversations. Again, everybody on this call, thank you so much for the time here. It's amazing to see franchise brands doing the right things by the right people. So thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.